Come sit with this one a while, because the story of Orpheus is woven with love, grief, beauty, and that very human ache of wanting certainty before its time. Orpheus was not known first for strength, nor for conquest, nor for the kind of glory won through battle. He was known for music. Orpheus is most commonly described as the son of Calliope, the muse of epic poetry, which is why his gifts with music and verse are often seen as divinely rooted. His father varies by tradition. In many sources, especially later ones, he is said to be the son of Apollo, god of music, poetry, and prophecy, which further emphasizes his extraordinary musical power. Other versions name a Thracian king as his father. Whether gifted by divine blood or blessing by the gods, his music was unlike anything the world had heard. When Orpheus played his lyre, rivers slowed, trees leaned closer, stones themselves were said to soften. Wild animals grew calm, and even the restless heart could find stillness in his song. This was not music for entertainment alone. It was music that moved the structure of things. And among all the lives touched by his song, there was one he loved most deeply. Her name was Eurydice. She was a woodland nymph, often described as graceful and bright, and Orpheus loved her with a devotion that seemed as natural as breath itself. Their marriage was a thing of joy, the kind of union that feels touched by blessing. But joy, in Greek myth, is rarely left untouched for long. Soon after their wedding, Eurydice was walking through the grass when she was pursued, in some tellings, by the shepherd Eurystheus. As she fled, she stepped upon a serpent hidden in the earth. The snake struck her, and its venom carried her swiftly into death. And just like that, Orpheus lost her. His grief was immense. He sang, and his sorrow filled the land so completely that gods and mortals alike were moved by it. But mourning on earth was not enough for him. Love for Orpheus could not simply stop at the boundary of death. So he did what few living souls ever dared. He descended into the underworld. With only his lyre and his love, Orpheus traveled into the realm of Hades, passing the shades of death, crossing the river Styx, and standing at last before Hades and Persephone, rulers of that shadowed kingdom. And there he played. He did not demand, he did not threaten, he sang. He sang of love, of loss, of sunlight remembered by someone standing in darkness. He sang of the unbearable pain of reaching for someone who was gone, and the hope, however fragile, that love might still matter enough to bridge impossible distances. His music was so profound that all of the underworld stilled to listen. The tormented paused. The spirits wept. Even Hades, often seen as stern and unyielding, was moved. For perhaps the first and only time known to man, the rulers of death agreed to release a soul. Eurydice could return with Orpheus to the living world, but there was one condition. Orpheus must walk ahead of her on the path upward, and he must not look back until both had fully crossed the boundary to reach the surface of the living. He would hear no reassurance. He would not see her footsteps. He would have to trust that she was there, following. And so he began. Upward he climbed through darkness and stone, through silence and uncertainty. He walked with the unbearable weight of hope beside fear, knowing Eurydice was somewhere behind him, and yet unable to confirm it. Imagine that silence for a moment. No voice, no touch, no proof, only trust. How hard must that have been with no evidence that your efforts were bearing fruit? Step by step, he moved closer to the world above. Light began to appear ahead, the boundary between death and life nearing at last. But doubt is often strongest when we are closest to the thing we longed for. And just before she fully crossed into sunlight, fear overcame faith. Orpheus turned to look upon his beloved, but her sandals had not completely crossed the boundary. For one brief, heartbreaking moment, he saw Eurydice behind him, and then she was gone. Because the condition had been broken, she was pulled back into the underworld, slipping from his reach a second time, now with no return offered. Some stories say she spoke only a soft farewell before vanishing. Others say she went silently with a small hand outreached. But however it happened, the loss was final. There was no second chance this time, no matter how deeply Hades and Persephone were moved. Orpheus returned to the living world changed beyond repair. Though he continued to sing, his songs were forever shaped by that sorrow. In many versions of the myth, he never loved another. He wandered, carrying the memory of Eurydice and the terrible knowledge of how close he had come if he had only been patient and trusted. His story endures not simply because it is tragic, but because it understands something tender and difficult about being human. So much of life carries the same feeling. Things are often moving long before we can fully see them, and some of the hardest moments ask us to keep going without immediate proof that what we hope for is still there. The urge to check too soon, to reach back out of fear, can interrupt what was already quietly unfolding. Orpheus's story reminds us how fragile trust can feel when fear and despair begin whispering for certainty before it's time. If there is something gentle to carry forward from his journey, it is the understanding that trust and patience often ask more of us than harsh demands ever could. Trust is not always dramatic, and it is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply the choice to remain steady, to keep moving forward with care, and to allow what is already in motion the time it needs to become fully real. This is what Orpheus and Eurydice offer us. We may not always see it, and we may not always hear it, but that does not mean it has stopped unfolding.